Welcome to NACD BoardVision, where leading boardroom advisors, governance professionals, and seasoned directors discuss critical issues related to your responsibilities in the boardroom.
Hi, I'm Steve Kalan with NACD. Welcome to BoardVision. With me today is Jamie McGough with Meridian Compensation Partners. Welcome, Jamie.
Steve, thanks for having me today.
Pay for performance is our topic today. It sounds great, and most companies say that they have it. But what does it really mean, and how do you know if you're actually achieving this?
Pay for performance should mean three things. First, the majority of total pay should be variable pay, and it should be based on measurable company results. Second, it should be tied to both near-term and long-term results. And third, it should be based on both financial and shareholder value, that is stock price-based metrics.
With so much emphasis and even skepticism on pay for performance, metrics are very important. So what are the key elements of a sound approach?
There are three things. First, what is being measured? We need to be sure that our performance metrics are measuring the right things. That's not always so obvious. Second, the goals, meaning the degree of challenge in those measures. And third, a plan should evaluate how well the ranking of realized pay, what happens at the end, corresponds to the ranking of realized performance.
Okay, let's look at each of those elements separately. First, how does a company select its performance metrics? Profits can't be the only barometer.
Oh, you're right. The goal is value creation for shareholders, and value creation is about a blend of profitability and growth. Keep in mind that profitability should be measured differently for different types of companies. We see return on invested capital, return on equity, operating income. It all depends on the type of business we're dealing with, and that needs to be considered carefully. Then there's growth. Generally, the guiding principle is that when a company's rate of profitability is below its investors' expectations, then growth measures usually take a back seat to profitability. On the other hand, when profitability is above the cost of capital, then it's best to put more focus on growth.
Jamie, let's turn to the second key element, performance goals. We've seen shareholder resolutions recently about non-financial metrics like diversity and environmental practices. These make sense for long-term value, but that's not part of our discussion today. So what types of performance goals should companies set?
Well, management should prepare goals for the board and compensation committee to review and approve. Now, in their process, they want to stress test those goals against four factors typically. First, recent company results. Second, strategic and financial aspirations, including mix of profitability and growth. Where do they want the company to be 3 and 5 years from now? Third, performance of a relevant group of peers. And fourth, investor or analyst expectations for the company.
Finally, let's talk about the last step you mentioned, how well the ranking of realized pay corresponds to the ranking of realized performance, and as you said, measuring realized pay versus realized results over time. This isn't done nearly as often as it should be, but in the long run, it's just as important.
Yeah, let me give you an analogy. An athlete trains and then they compete. And afterwards, they measure how well they did. Well, pay for performance is no different. Businesses need to evaluate not only how did they do against their own internal goals, but how do they stack up against other companies. This means measuring both the relative performance and the relative amount of pay. The key point, Steve, is that there needs to be and should be directional consistency over time between the percentile ranking of the amount paid, realized earnings, and the performance delivered.
Jamie, it seems like this is closely related to the ISS model for pay in relation to performance. But doesn't the ISS model take a limited view of some issues, like long-term incentives, for example?
Yes, they do, and here's the rub. ISS is looking at the grant date value, not the realized value. That ignores one of the critical ideas of pay for performance. You need to measure realized pay against realized performance. What did we pay for what did we get? To do that, you need to look at the realized value from long-term incentives, not the grant date value.
Thanks, Jamie. This was a good primer on pay for performance. We see that to tie pay to performance, we need to have the right metrics, the appropriate goals, and proper measurement of realized pay to realized performance. Your key points today. Until next time, I'm Steve Kalan with NACD, and this is BoardVision.